Tonight in 9 News, in the balance, Novak books a first-round spot as Australia holds its breath. Will he stay or go? Crowds at the Open capped at 50%. Fans assured no cancellations. Isolation rules dropped for critical workers to get Melbourne moving again. Victorian farmers forced to let veggies rot because they can't get them to stores. Prince Andrew is going to court. The Duke fails to have his accuser's lawsuit dismissed. And MCG hero Scott Boland fighting fit as he sweats on the spot in the 5th test.
This is Melbourne's 9 News with Peter Hitchener.
Good evening. The drawn-out rally between the federal government and Novak Djokovic continues. The immigration minister is yet to make his decision on whether he'll cancel his visa. The world number one's been named in the Australian Open draw on another day of drama at Melbourne Park. Adam Hegarty has the latest.
Novak Djokovic practising on centre court and taking centre stage in the Australian Open. Soap opera. The reigning champion feeling the heat in more ways than one, but despite the threat of deportation, he manages a smile, preparing as normal with a visa cancellation at this stage. Still nothing more than a threat.
I refer to Minister Hawke's most recent statement, and that position hasn't changed, and these are personal ministerial powers able to be exercised by Minister Hawke, and I don't propose to make any further comment at this time.
That doesn't mean they didn't spook Open organisers.
Have you heard anything from the government?
Yeah, no, I'm not going to make a comment at this point.
Have you heard from Novak's camp yet?
We'll let you know.
The official draw, slated for 3 p.m, abruptly postponed, but then at 4:30, the inevitable. On paper, he plays.
We start with our number 1 seed for the tournament, Novak Djokovic.
The world number one or public enemy number one. The world's divided.
Rafa could not have put it any better. Just get vaccinated.
The Serbian top seed facing accusations of several international offences, entering Australia with a false declaration, like travelling to Spain, where officials are also investigating him, and in Serbia, breaking isolation rules.
I think that the rules that one person follows is the rules that everybody should follow. He's still a child of God like the rest of us, isn't he? So he's got to abide by the laws.
Immigration Minister Alex Hawke with his finger on the deportation trigger. Sifting through more documents from Novak's lawyers, the federal government's legal minds getting their ducks in a row. They won't face Novak on court, but they don't want another embarrassing defeat in court.
I'm very confident in the actions that Minister Hawke will go through in order to consider this matter properly.
Well, Adam, could there be a decision tonight?
No. There won't be, Pete, but look, that's not to say the Immigration Minister won't still go through with cancelling Novak's visa and trying to deport him in the coming days, potentially tomorrow. But as a source in the federal government put it to me a little bit earlier, he's just trying to be extra careful in this instance, considering what's happened in the past couple of days and over the past week. But that poses a couple of real dilemmas and issues, particularly for the Australian Open, for instance. The longer this drags out, the more it wreaks havoc on the actual tennis and the draw. And Pete, then there's the question on how on earth do you detain the world number one Novak Djokovic when he's already out in the city?
Adam Hegarty with the latest. Crowd numbers at the Australian Open will be slashed by half over fears of the tournament becoming a super spreader event. Maggie Rayworth's at Melbourne Park. Maggie, how many will be allowed to attend?
Well, Pete, in what is another blow for the Australian Open, the state government has announced a new COVID-safe plan which will impact ticket sales. Under the new rules, crowds will be cut back by 50%. Now, the state government says this won't impact those who have already purchased a ticket. Those tickets will still be valid and they can still go. The new measure will impact those who haven't yet bought their ticket. Now, some people are disappointed. They say many people go to the tennis for that atmosphere. Others say they do feel more safe with these measures in place.
I mean, it's a good result for me as someone who has a ticket already. Less lines for get a beer, or less competition for seats. But obviously, I think it's the best thing in terms of safety at the moment.
Pete, there will be density limits under the new rules for all indoor settings inside the tennis, and for anyone who attends, they will be required to wear a mask at all times, except of course if they're eating or drinking. But these rules kick off when the Australian Open does on Monday, Pete.
Okay, Maggie, thank you. Home isolation will be relaxed for a raft of critical workers to ease crippling staff shortages. As part of the quarantine shake-up, essential employees exposed to COVID are permitted to return to work immediately, but strict rules apply. Medical reporter Emily Rice.
Rubbish is rarely a concern unless there's a problem with the garbage collection. And Victoria's vital waste management industry has been grappling with staff shortages due to COVID isolation rules.
It is a critical service and certainly our employees are itching to get back to work.
Under current pandemic policy, COVID close contacts must quarantine for 7 days. But from next Wednesday, critical staff across a raft of essential services will be allowed to return to work immediately, even if they live with a positive case.
They will be exempt if they're playing a critical role. They will be exempt from having to do home ISO. They will need to take a RAT test for 5 days. And if that is negative, then they can proceed to do that critical work.
The new rules apply to Victorian workers in emergency services, prisons, utilities like electricity and water, freight and transport, education and critical care services. Anyone skipping quarantine must be asymptomatic, take lunch breaks in solo areas.
And they'll be required to wear a mask throughout the entire length of their duties at work, preferably an N95 mask.
Socialising before and after the job is strictly banned.
They can't be off at the pub afterwards or going and visiting other people.
And the responsibility to provide the 5 daily RA tests to workers rests with
the employer. The employee cannot be asked to provide their own test. That would not be, I think, fair.
The Victorian Waste Management Association welcomes the changes.
Really good common sense, it's practical, it's part of the solution.
The Prime Minister, speaking after National Cabinet, wants the ISO exemption extended to even more industries.
All in the transport, freight and logistics sector, and that also will include those who work at service stations, telecommunications, data, broadcasting and media.
The state's Omicron caseload continues to grow, with more than 37,000 new infections, 25 deaths and a record 953 COVID patients in hospital. In New South Wales, which has just started counting positive home swabs, there were more than 92,000 new cases. With home swabs now the priority, the PCR testing system is finally starting to recover. This time last week at the Town Hall Clinic, the queue stretched right up Collins Street, but today it's fewer than 10 deep.
69% now of our PCR test results are coming back within 48 hours. Over half are now coming back the next day.
Emily, has National Cabinet come to a consensus on school restrictions?
Pete, the Prime Minister has certainly made his opinion clear. He wants schools nationally to return as per normal and he wants to move away from that homeschooling model. Daniel Andrews here in Victoria agrees. He wants our schools also to return as normal in a couple of weeks' time. But it seems Queensland, Tasmania and South Australia are holding out, with delays likely in those states. So it seems like so many things in this pandemic, Pete, not all of the states and territories are on the same page.
Medical reporter Emily Rice. COVID-19 tests will no longer be required to travel to the Sunshine State from Saturday afternoon. Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk today scrapped all domestic border rules. International travellers will still have to wait until Queensland is 90% double jabbed. The Prime Minister has rejected a plea for ADF troops to help the paralysed aged care industry. Buckling under a staffing crisis, it's been swamped by rapidly spreading outbreaks and thousands of COVID cases in hundreds of homes. Eddie Meyer has more.
It's a plan already being used overseas. Defence Force troops in the battle against a raging wave of Omicron. Now, desperate aged care operators here pitch the same idea to the federal government.
Anywhere we can get help at the moment is going to be really, really helpful for us.
The Prime Minister rejecting it outright.
The suggestion that Defence Forces can go in and operate in aged care. No, that's not the case. The Defence Forces are not a shadow workforce for the entire economy or the health workforce.
The opposition says the idea should be taken seriously.
There's got to be something put in place to get us out of the situation we confront in aged care. Yet again, tens of thousands of vulnerable older Australians right now are locked in their rooms, unable to take visitors.
Virginia Martin's 80-year-old father is among them, a resident locked down in a Canberra aged care home.
It's affecting his mental health. He's in the room, he only gets his meals delivered. It's day 13. These last few days, his voice is like, just changed a little bit, and the things that he's saying, it's bad.
The latest data shows 495 aged care homes across the country have active outbreaks. 1,370 residents are COVID positive, along with 1,835 staff. Since July last year, there have been 239 deaths in aged care, 12 of them since the start of this year. Of Australia's 2,600 aged care facilities, 1,700 have received boosters. Those outbreaks were recorded at the end of last week. The fear is it's already much worse.
I believe that will be over 1,000 homes by tomorrow.
Right now, aged care homes across the country are short up to 50% of their workforce, with staff either COVID positive or close contacts. The Holy Family Services facility in Sydney's West has managed to keep its residents COVID free, but a large number of staff have been COVID positive since before Christmas, its chief executive among them.
I've worked in aged care for a very, very long time, and this is the first time I've actually had to go back and work on the floor as a registered nurse, and I'm the CEO. I have never ever seen anything like this before.
Aged care homes in crisis and needing urgent staff can apply for help from the National Surge Workforce. Trouble is, in the past 2 weeks, it's only been able to cover 3% of the shifts requested and needing to be filled. And some homes are in a worse state than others. This aged care worker turned up for a shift at a southern Sydney facility last week after a break, unaware it was in crisis.
There were 20 COVID residents out of 30 residents. The public health unit had taken over. The residents are now being looked after by people who they don't know, which is really upsetting.
She believes the outbreak was caused by a worker being encouraged to return while waiting for a PCR test result. That worker did, but soon after discovered they were positive. Eddie Meyer, 9 News.
With no one to harvest them, Victorian farmers are destroying their crops. Industry groups are demanding access to more rapid tests so workers can return at one of the busiest times of the year. Mimi Becker with the story.
Perfectly good produce ploughed back into the ground. This is the harsh reality for some South Gippsland farmers left with no staff to harvest their crops.
We had about 44 staff away at once. Our production has gone down 50% or even more.
Chris Schruers is having to destroy 300,000 celery plants. The third-generation farmer now can't meet orders for all the major supermarkets and has had to stop exports.
It just disrupts the whole chain, from not only your business but the people that you rely on to get your product from A to B, and then your clients and the end consumers at the end of the day aren't getting the produce on the shelves.
While shoppers are faced with empty supermarket shelves, Woolworths and Coles have also had to cancel some orders from growers.
Everyone's balancing what they can do and just trying to streamline as much as they can do.
Across at Taranto Farms, they've been lucky and able to pick and package their leek and carrot crops.
You've got farmers losing a lot of money, but we're just not supplying, and it's just making it hard to go forwards and for the future.
Some of the workers have been forced to isolate, but now they're back on board.
I was farming from home, so it makes it a bit harder, but everyone pulls together and we get it all done.
Growers are hoping they don't face more worker shortages, but with the COVID peak still to come, they say they're not holding their breath. While food handling staff are allowed to return to work if they're a close contact and asymptomatic, they need to have access to rapid tests, which is still a struggle.
We need to make sure that we can get our workers back into the supply chain as soon as possible.
Mimi Becker, 9 News.
Woolworths customers in the market for toilet paper and painkillers won't be able to buy more than 2 packets of each. The supermarket announced it'll reintroduce limits on purchases of the products across all stores and online as well, following supply chain issues and surging demand. The restrictions bring Woolies into line with competitor Coles, which has also imposed caps on the same items. A bitter blow tonight for Prince Andrew after his attempts to get Virginia Giuffre's sex assault lawsuit thrown out failed. Legal analysts say it's a pivotal moment. The Duke will now have to face court later this year. Alison Petrowski has today's developments.
After months of stalling and delays, Prince Andrew played his final card and failed. His lawyers had argued that Virginia Giuffre's $700,000 settlement with Jeffrey Epstein shielded the Duke of York from any liability. The judge disagreed. The 2009 agreement cannot be said to demonstrate clearly and unambiguously the parties intended the instrument directly, primarily or substantially to benefit Prince Andrew.
His name was not specifically mentioned in the release that he was arguing should apply to him.
Giuffre's lawyer welcoming the ruling. She looks forward to a judicial determination of the merits of those claims. Giuffre was 17 when she claims she was sex trafficked by the disgraced financier and forced to perform sexual acts on his friends, including Prince Andrew. The case now moves to the discovery phase. Prince Andrew will face a deposition. Giuffre's lawyers will be requesting documents such as travel logs and also medical records to prove his claims that he cannot sweat.
I have a peculiar medical condition, which is that I don't sweat.
The Duke may refuse to answer questions under oath on the grounds that it may incriminate him.
Prince Andrew has continually denied all allegations against him. It's likely he'll try and settle.
97 to 99% of US civil trials do not actually get to court. They always get settled.
But the decision may not be his. Giuffre has indicated she wants her day in court. In the United States, Alison Petrowski, 9 News.
Europe correspondent Kari-Anne Greenbank is at Buckingham Palace. Kari, what's been the response from the royal family?
Well, Pete, Buckingham Palace has said that it won't be commenting, but this is a very unwelcome development for the royal family. Prince Andrew now has options, but none of them are good. If he tries to settle outside of court, it could potentially cost millions of dollars and lead to significant reputational damage for the British monarchy. If he chooses to contest the case, well, that could lead to a sensational civil trial and the very real possibility of other members of the royal family being called upon to give evidence, including his ex-wife Fergie and his eldest daughter Beatrice. So whichever way this plays out, it is certainly a bad start to the year for the royal family, particularly given this year, 2022, the focus was meant to be on the Queen celebrating her Platinum Jubilee. Pete.
Kari-Anne Greenbank in London. The occupants of a light plane have avoided injury after overshooting the runway on the Mornington Peninsula this afternoon. Firefighters were called to the scene at Taiab just before 3 o'clock to find the aircraft in a paddock. It was significantly damaged. Essendon's oldest living player is being celebrated on this, his 100th birthday. Having donned the sash in the 30s, Alan Woods is also a World War II veteran and famously struck up a friendship with Sir Donald Bradman. Clint Stanaway met him.
He's the living treasure who seems to always draw a crowd, be it his children, grandchildren or great-grandchildren.
Relax and enjoy the fantastic birthday.
Alan Woods is Mr. Popular.
A lot of people will be asking, what is your secret to longevity?
Would not tell them. I don't know. Well looked after and had a wonderful life.
But as Alan chalked up 100 years with a little shindig at home, the party wasn't really complete until a member from his bomber family dropped in.
Sensational, hey? It's a good handshake too, by the way. By gee.
Alan is Essendon's oldest surviving player, and Sheeds came armed with a special gift and floods of messages from some of his favourites.
Been talking to Matthew Lloyd, and he wished you all the best for your 100th. He thought it was a magnificent effort.
But his time at the Bombers only forms part of this extraordinary story. He's also a World War II veteran, while later in life, Alan worked in the Lyrebird factory hand-stitching footies and cricket balls, and that's where he formed a friendship with the Don.
So Donald only would let Dad stitch the cricket balls that he wanted to use, yeah, because he was the best at it.
He certainly loves his cricket, his footy and a glass of beer every afternoon. To this day, Alan and 97-year-old wife Jessie live in the family home, a place of immense warmth.
Happy birthday to you.
100 of the best, and he's not quite done with yet.
Really enjoyed my life, all the years I've been here. Let's hope it will go on a little bit longer.
Clint Stanaway.
Cheers, Pop.
9 News.
Cheers and happy birthday, Alan. Well, Clint's here with a look ahead to some sport.
Thanks so much, Pete. Tonight in sport, the show rolls on at Melbourne Park. Here is Corey Norris.
Clint, despite another dramatic day here at Melbourne Park, the draw has gone ahead with top seed Novak Djokovic to face a fellow Serbian in the opening round, while Ash Barty will kickstart her campaign against the qualifier. I'll have all the details later in sport.
Test match eve is usually low-key for Australia's bowlers, but that certainly wasn't the case for Scott Boland today. Put through a rigorous fitness test as he looks to suit up in Hobart tomorrow. We'll have those pictures for you shortly. Clint?
Thanks, Braden. And also Corey. Also ahead tonight, some flippin' good news from the slopes as an Aussie strikes gold ahead of the games. And the soccer referee who got very ahead of himself. That's all coming up very soon in sport, Pete.
OK, thank you, Clint. There's been a foul mess beside the ring road, a truckload of offal overflowing from a semi. Boris apologises but denies his garden party broke the rules, and the driver who found an easy way into a tight spot. First responders needed strong stomachs to deal with the smelly situation in Altona around midday, a truck spilling its load of offal while pulling off the M80 ring road. It's understood the semi-trailer's contents overflowed when the driver hit the brakes. Part of the Boundary Road exit ramp was closed while the mess was cleaned up, causing delays. The British Prime Minister admits he did attend a garden party at number 10 in the height of England's first lockdown. Boris Johnson has apologised but denies the function broke COVID restrictions. More from Davina Smith.
The party could be over for the UK Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I want to apologise.
A crestfallen Boris Johnson facing Parliament and addressing the nation.
I have learned enough to know that there were things we simply did not get right. And I must take responsibility.
Admitting he did attend an event at Downing Street during lockdown. An email leaked earlier this week revealing 100 people had been invited to socially distanced drinks.
When I went into that garden just after 6 on the 20th of May 2020 to thank groups of staff before going back into my office 25 minutes later to continue working, I believed implicitly that this was a work event. With hindsight, I should have sent everyone back inside.
At the time, people in the UK were barred from meeting with more than one person outside their household.
It's his defence that he didn't realise he was at a party. It is so ridiculous that it's actually offensive to the British public.
He's sorry because he's been caught.
The opposition calling for more than just words from the Prime Minister.
Is he now going to do the decent thing and resign?
Boris Johnson deflecting to the impending results of an official inquiry into several alleged parties at number 10. But as he buys precious time, his popularity with the public is plummeting. Davina Smith, 9 News.
An abandoned baby has survived negative 20-degree temperatures in Siberia. The little girl was rescued by a group of 5 teenagers who found her inside an egg carton on a remote road. Rushed to hospital, doctors declared her fit and well. Police searching for the mother say she'll be charged with attempted murder. The Canadian province of Quebec is set to tax unvaccinated residents as it grapples with the highest COVID death rate in the country. The exact fee for the so-called health tax is yet to be confirmed. Quebec's premier says the 12% of the population not yet jabbed, it's a matter of fairness for the majority of the community who have made sacrifices. It's always worth handling fragile parcels with care, but this Chinese delivery worker didn't get the memo when he dropped a box of novelty fireworks called bang snaps. Ooh, look out. It erupted into a fireball as colleagues fled the yard, returning to a mess of debris. It's safe to say that package won't be reaching its destination. A driver in China has lost control in slippery conditions. His car launched into the air, clipping the top of 3 others before dramatically landing in a vacant slot. The accidental manoeuvre ended with one of the vehicles on its side and debris scattered across the car park. In a major milestone for the Metro Tunnel project, the first of 5 noise-cancelling sheds is about to be dismantled. As Maggie Rayworth discovered, train travellers will be a step closer to a faster commute.
For years, these sheds have been the only view of the Metro Tunnel project.
We've completed the tunnelling and underground excavation.
Starting at St Kilda Road, crews will now begin dismantling the project's 5 sheds. They've been used to contain noise and dust caused by construction. Hundreds of workers have removed around 400,000 tonnes of rock and soil at the new Anzac Station site. There is now a 300-metre long station box right beneath St Kilda Road.
Fit out building works, so we've got a lot of services and systems and rooms that you would expect to see in an operating train station, so that starts now.
The shed removal will take around 6 weeks and will reveal the site's temporary cover before it's demolished and removed. The finished site to look like this.
People can get off a tram, get onto a train and very quickly be at Parkville, for example, if you're a university student.
Once complete, 40,000 people a day are expected to use Anzac Station. The site will take pressure off the St Kilda Road Swanston Street tram route, which the Department of Transport says is the busiest in the world. In 2025, the finished Metro Tunnel will ferry more than 500,000 extra passengers a week during peak times across Melbourne's train network. Maggie Rayworth, 9 News.
Madeline's here now for a check of the weather, and it's been very warm today, Maddie.
That's right, it has been, Pete. My favourite kind of day, sunny, humid, and we even got a few bonus degrees. The city peaked at 34.6 from a low of 18. A slow-moving trough is triggering extensive thunderstorm activity through western Victoria. It's being fed by a very warm and humid northeasterly airflow, which is helping to generate the instability. Those storms have already sparked a number of fires today, and we are starting to see some heavy rainfall developing. Walpiop has recorded 30 millimetres. Severe storms could deliver further heavy rain and damaging winds tonight, and there is a severe weather warning in place for these areas here. They will be moving towards us tomorrow, and I'll have more on that a little later, Pete.
Righto, thank you, Maddie. Speeding drivers are putting Melbourne road workers at risk. Next, the urgent call to slow down during the city's construction blitz. Tributes to a pop superstar who survived being married to a monster. And a bulldozing buffalo sends a man flying into the air. Security footage of a car travelling along Sydney Road in Fawkner could hold the key to solving a deadly hit-run. Police say the vehicle is a dark-coloured 2012 to 2015 Audi Q7 and would have damage between its 2 headlights and to the bonnet. A 30-year-old Fawkner man was killed early on Saturday morning. The driver did not stop. Drivers are being urged to remain patient during the construction blitz underway on our roads. The warning comes as motorists take their frustrations out on traffic workers on some of Melbourne's busiest freeways. Neri Tai with the details.
With the summer roadwork blitz in full swing, driver patience is also wearing thin. Westgate Freeway widening works, along with other upgrades across major roads in and around the city, will increase delays in the coming weeks. Authorities are urging drivers to keep calm.
As we've started to come back after restrictions, I think we've been a little bit rusty. We certainly have seen a bit of aggravation, people not being happy on the roads.
Here on CityLink, cars can be seen weaving through cones, ignoring closed lane signs and performing dangerous last-minute manoeuvres.
What we're probably seeing is a lack of patience. So if the lane's closed for a reason. It's not a thoroughfare.
While crews are setting up or packing up roadworks on the tollway, drivers are exceeding the 40-kilometre speed limit by an average of 15 kilometres an hour, with some drivers clocking up 70 kilometres an hour.
It's a desire to cut through to save 10 seconds when you've put yourself, our workers at risk, our emergency services workers at risk, and your fellow motorists at risk.
During pre-COVID times, there were around 10 million trips every single day. That number has now dropped to 6.6 million, a decrease of more than 30%.
While there are significantly less cars on the network, motorists should allow for extra travel time.
Take your time, plan ahead, look at the Big Build website. It's going to take you probably a little bit longer to get somewhere right now because of the work's taking place. Pay attention and we can all get home safely.
Neri Tai, 9 News.
60s superstar Ronnie Spector has died at the age of 78. She was the voice behind these classics.
The
lead singer of the Ronettes girl group lost a short cancer battle. Known for her towering beehive hair and rock and roll image, she was married to notorious producer Phil Spector, who subjected her to decades of abuse. Her family says she lived life with a twinkle in her eye and a spunky attitude. Peace in Somalia remains as elusive as ever after 8 people were killed and many more injured in a car bomb attack on a convoy of foreign aid and security workers in the capital, Mogadishu. The explosion, close to a UN compound at the city's airport, destroyed several nearby buildings. Al-Shabaab, an Al-Qaeda-linked terror group, has claimed responsibility. Forget the bull in a China shop, how about a buffalo in a Chinese restaurant? A would-be diner was scooped up and sent flying by the big-horned beast on the loose from a nearby farm in the country's east. The man wasn't seriously hurt, surprisingly. The buffalo is now back in its paddock. When a lioness sees a young wildebeest, every instinct says lunch. But nature can be quirky and sometimes merciful. This one in Tanzania's Serengeti National Park gently shepherded a lost baby back to its mother's herd. Park rangers believe maternal instincts overrode the usual laws that drive a predator. Crown shares soared today on a fresh takeover bid, while a clearer path into Queensland did nothing to help travel stocks. Here's Chris Kohler.
A solid rise for the ASX today, finishing 0.5% higher. The big winner was Crown, jumping close to 9% after a sweetened takeover offer from Blackstone. It's now willing to pay almost $9 billion for the casino giant. And today's share price jump means Crown has almost fully recovered from last year's damning state inquiries. Elsewhere, strong gains for miners like BHP and Rio Tinto after the price of iron ore hit a 3-month high overnight, and travel stocks fell despite Queensland announcing it'll drop its domestic border rules. And the Australian dollar edged higher to 72 US cents, 63 euro cents and 53 British pence.
There's been a huge jump in the number of people killed on Victorian roads while not wearing a seatbelt. Details next. Why Melbourne tenants are paying more than ever for a rental. And frozen treats help Healesville's furry friends beat the heat. There's been a disturbing spike in the number of people killed on Victorian roads while not wearing a seatbelt. Nearly a quarter of the 236 people who died in crashes in 2021 were not strapped in, the highest percentage in almost a decade. The overwhelming majority were drivers. The TAC says there's no excuse for not buckling up. Melbourne renters are now paying the lowest prices in the country, but that doesn't mean it's cheap. Real estate experts have told property reporter Chris Kohler now is the time to lock in a lease.
Renters Rachel and Xavier are looking for a new home. It's not an easy task in Melbourne right now.
It is a little bit tricky, like it feels competitive.
They're facing a bizarre combination. On the one hand, Melbourne rents have never been higher, but on the other, it's now the cheapest city in the country.
I read that this morning.
Really? That's
interesting.
You know, tenants will be a bit surprised.
The cost to rent a house in Melbourne is $15 a week higher than it was 3 months ago, a record at $445 a week. Despite that, it's Australia's most affordable city. In the last year, Perth, Adelaide and Brisbane have all become more expensive.
Melbourne is certainly much weaker. It's much more favourable to tenants compared to our other capital cities. But I think, you know, we have started to see a turnaround and a recovery in rents.
It all depends where you look. The most expensive suburbs are Carlton, Canterbury and North Melbourne, all a whopping $950 a week. But renting a unit in suburbs like Wyndham Vale, Williamstown North and West Meadows will cost significantly less. All have a median under $200 a week. The other problem right now is availability. Less than 2 out of every 100 rental properties is vacant right now, a crisis that's likely to get worse before it gets better. So anyone who waits to move will likely pay more.
Now could be a great time to actually lock in a deal.
Chris Kohler, 9 News.
The days are certainly getting warmer, but thankfully the treats at Healesville Sanctuary are getting cooler. Marnie, the tree kangaroo, taking quite the shine to her frozen fruit icy pole. Now, it comes complete with a carrot handle, which you need for accessibility and a bit of crunch as well. Keepers also using sprinklers to keep the marsupials cool as temperatures soar. That's lovely. Well, now with sport, Clint Stanaway.
Hello again, Pete. Thanks for that. After the break, Novak's round one opponent revealed. That's if he plays. Plus, Barty on a collision course with the defending champ. Big Scott put under the microscope. We'll cross live to Hobart on Test Eve. And why you should keep your eyes peeled for this winter athlete. Welcome back. Tennis officials have been forced to press on with their official Australian Open draw. That's despite the very real prospect Novak Djokovic could be deported. Let's head live to Corey Norris. Corey, it's been a strange few hours there at Melbourne Park.
Yeah, that is an understatement, Clint. Good evening to you. You might have heard earlier that this official draw was delayed by more than an hour this afternoon, with some thought that there would be an announcement on the Novak Djokovic situation, but that wasn't the case. The draw went ahead with top seed Novak Djokovic to face fellow Serbian Kecmanovic in the opening round. But look, if things do change over the next 24 hours, as many are expecting, and Novak Djokovic has his visa cancelled, that of course really does open up the draw for the top seeds, the likes of world number 2, Daniil Medvedev, Alexander Zverev, Stefanos Tsitsipas, and of course the veteran Rafael Nadal, who would get the chance to be the first man to 21 Grand Slam titles, and he spoke a little earlier today.
Challenging times like the last 6 months is tough mentally and especially later in your career. But I think I hold the passion and the love for what I am doing, so I still have energy.
Now, as for the Aussies, world number 1 Ash Barty will get underway against a qualifier, but she does face a potential fourth-round clash with defending champion Naomi Osaka. Alex de Minaur will kickstart his campaign against Italian Lorenzo Musetti, and some relief for Nick Kyrgios tonight, who has drawn a qualifier, with that match potentially coming just hours after he is freed from isolation on Sunday, setting up what would be an enthralling opening couple of days here at Melbourne Park. Clint?
Thanks so much, Corey. Bit of cricket for you now. While the axing of Marcus Harris from the Test team came as no great shock, much of today's focus was on the fitness of Scott Boland. Let's head live to Braden Ingram in Hobart. Braden, has the Victorian done enough to guarantee that spot for tomorrow?
Well, Clint, it's certainly shaping that way. Of course, he's been the chief destroyer in the past 2 Test matches for the Aussies, taking 14 wickets. But on what would have normally been a day of rest, he was forced into the nets to try and prove his fitness, and he did just that. But barring any setbacks tomorrow morning, he'll be given the green light for a pink ball Boland bonanza. Wherever he's gone, England misery has followed.
Seems like any wicket suits Scotty at the moment.
The Aussies hoping they can once more harness Scott Boland, waiting until match eve before putting his rib injury to the test. After a 30-minute session, Boland debriefed with the team physio and selector Tony Dottermaid. Pass fit for now, before a final assessment before tomorrow's toss.
He bowled 30-40 overs after he did the injury. Just gives us a lot of confidence he can get through it. He's confident it doesn't get worse with heaps of bowling. It's just a lot of pain.
The skipper taking more than a few minutes to inspect an ominous-looking deck. As it stands, the Hobart curator is set to produce a green monster. England in particular will be hoping it's nothing like a Shield clash here last year, when New South Wales was bowled out for just 32. With Travis Head recalled, Marcus Harris's time is up. But if he's lucky, it's only temporary.
He's certainly part of the future. Keep investing with him. Uzi and Davey have really earned that spot to open the batting, but the reality is I think they're both 35 years old.
For now though, that experience counts. Khawaja's twin century significant enough for Paul Kelly to pen a new ballad.
Khawaja loved the game of cricket since he was a boy.
And they have the perfect cover artist.
I might tell Smithy to play it actually. He's got his guitar down here. I'll let him do a rendition in the middle of the change room for us.
For the tourists, Jimmy Anderson is set to be rested, while Saw pair Johnny Bairstow and Ben Stokes are likely to play. In Hobart, Braden Ingram, 9 News.
With just the one round so far complete, there's already headaches for AFLW officials who've had to cancel 2 weekend fixtures after COVID outbreaks at both Brisbane and the Western Bulldogs. Matches between the Blues and Lions and Cats and Dogs won't proceed. Geelong and Carlton to instead play on Saturday night. Chelsea has won through to the League Cup final with an impressive 1-0 victory over London rival Tottenham. Defender Antonio Rudiger struck in the 18th minute.
Galini came and got nowhere near. Rudiger too big, too strong, too certain.
The Blues will meet either Liverpool or Arsenal in the Wembley decider. Meanwhile, at the African Cup of Nations, utter chaos in the match between Tunisia and Mali, with the referee blowing his whistle right on 90 minutes.
He's saying there's got to be extra time, surely has to be, for the sendings off, and the arguments are going to continue here.
Those protests to no avail, with Mali awarded a 1-0 win. And Australia's Winter Olympics campaign has been given a real boost, with Canberra's Law Appeal claiming the Aerial World Cup in Utah. Peel scored an 8.4 after landing this effort in her final run of the women's freestyle. Peel and the Aussies will set their sights now on the Beijing Games in 3 weeks. You'd do that up in Bulla, wouldn't you?
Isn't that amazing? Never seen anything like it. Thank you, Clint. Now, Madeline's back with us. How are those storms going to play out tomorrow, Maddie?
Oh, well, Pete, we could get some rain and thunder in the morning, and then it is set to redevelop again later in the day. But don't expect the temperature to take a hit. Cooler maximums are still a few days away, and I'll have those details next. Hello again. Melbourne's run of picture-perfect summer weather continued today. The beautiful sunshine has made the uncomfortably warm nights bearable. The city's low of 18 came just before 6 a.m, then peaking at 35 this afternoon. Thunderstorms have been sparking up through Western Victoria today. They've caused a number of fires to break out in the area, and there has been some heavy rain developing. Walpurgis has recorded 30 millimetres, 26 fell at Eden Hope in an hour, and an intense downpour at Cressy in the Golden Plains Shire delivered 38 millimetres in less than 30 minutes late this afternoon. The severe weather warning has just been updated, now confined to the Mallee, where severe storms are likely to produce damaging winds and further heavy rainfall over the next several hours. Tomorrow, that activity will extend across eastern and central Victoria as this trough gradually moves across the state. There is going to be the risk of severe thunderstorms through much of that area. At this stage, they will be most likely for these parts in red. However, warnings will continue to be updated, so do keep an eye on the BOM website for those. We will see a clearing trend over the weekend, with just some showers and storms persisting over eastern Victoria on Saturday. They will ease during the day, and then Sunday is looking fairly dry and settled, also less muggy as we finally flush out that humid easterly wind over Victoria. Tomorrow, showers and storms will extend east across the state. Widespread totals will be in the 10 to 30 millimetre range. Severe storms could deliver locally heavy falls of up to 70 millimetres. So flash flooding is the main concern with this system, and there's just an outside chance of damaging winds and large hail. Conditions will ease in the west tomorrow. And it will be dry and mostly sunny in the far west. Mildura should reach 35. Swan Hill will go one higher. It will be a muggy, unstable day for central and eastern Victoria, with maximums in the mid to high 20s for most. Bendigo and Echuca will climb into the 30s, and winds will be quite gusty for coastal areas. Here in Melbourne, showers will arrive in the early hours with possible thunder. Then we'll get a lull in the middle of the day before storms return in the afternoon. Most suburbs are forecast to get between 10 and 25 or even 30 millimetres, but we could see some bigger isolated totals with storms. It will still be humid, with minimums between 17 and 20 degrees, then climbing into the high 20s and low 30s. It'll be even warmer in the city overnight. It's only expected to drop to 21 degrees before reaching 32, with up to 25 millimetres. Saturday will be cooler though, 25 degrees, a chance of showers in the morning, a partly cloudy top of 27 on Sunday, then a cooler start to the working week, 23 on Monday for day one of the Australian Open, 22 on Tuesday. A slightly windier day on Wednesday, 26 degrees, and 28 on Thursday. So tonight will be even warmer than last night, dropping to 21. Then tomorrow, showers in the early morning and again storms in the afternoon, and 32 degrees. But at least the weekend's looking pretty good, Pete.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you, Maddie. And Melbourne, that's what's news this Thursday. Sylvia Jeffries is next with a current affair. Enjoy your evening and good night.